Okay, look. I'm finished. I'm done. I've had to leave the Green Party. The Let's Make Hope Normal Again, as far as I understand, is a crock of crap to win people over, and as soon as they get in, they'll do just like Labour and do a complete U-turn, or they might actually tax the rich, but only to pay for implementing stuff like your carbon footprint and 15-minute cities. I do not trust, I will never trust a Zionist. Like the Queen of England and Margaret Thatcher, actually, two people who I had never thought would actually be on my side. The Queen of England, Margaret Thatcher, who called these Zionists terrorists, and that is what they are. And there are no two ways about it. And this government has just abandoned the law again in order to give Palantir, an Israeli military and intelligence asset, access to all our data. Basically, they've scrapped the Data Protection Act for the people of this country in favour of terrorists. Because that is what they are. Okay? Or else, tell me the Queen of England was a liar then. Tell her that she should have been inviting Netanyahu to Buckingham Palace. They are terrorists. They've always been terrorists. Einstein knew they were terrorists. Right? As I've said before, the world was happy to, yes, Einstein, thank you. Thank you for giving us, the atomic power. Right? Oh, yeah, they're prepared to listen to him about his atomic research, but they're not prepared to listen to him about saying no to Palestine, because saying no to Israel, to a Zionist-controlled Israel. Saying no, Zionists should not be allowed to do it. They're terrorists. They bombed and killed British soldiers in Palestine. They're evil people. They have an evil philosophy. And I found out that Zach Polanski is actually a Zionist. And he thinks that there's levels of Zionism. What levels of Zionism? Tell me. Tell me about the levels of Nazism. Tommy Robinson. Oh, he's not a Nazi. Nigel Farage. He isn't a Nazi. He's a level of Nazi. So he can stand up for Prime Minister. Another one that backs the Greater Israel Project and licks the boots of the Zionists, right? So, again, we have a general election in which you've got a choice of Zionists. That's the fact of it. And it is time to fight back. All this protesting against this, that and the other, I've always said it. I've said it for decades. Wasting your time. Stand up for. You get strong when you stand up for your human rights. When you stand up for your human rights, there's no homeless on the streets because everybody has a right to shelter. But no, instead, let a Nazi, fascist, Zionist come in and use exactly the problem of immigrants, illegal immigrants coming into Britain on boats. For him to get into power and take away our human rights. I am disgusted, right? Really disgusted. Sick, actually. Sick to the extent that I feel I'm going to have to go and be a political refugee because my life is at risk. And that is a fact. My life is at risk because I've written stuff like this. Okay? Nobody dares like it or share it because they're frightened. Frightened of what? Why should we in this country be frightened of speaking out against terrorists taking over our country, taking over Palestine, taking over Iraq, taking over Syria, taking over Lebanon, 750,000 people just shoved out of their homes? And our country's supporting that still. They're doing military intelligence missions for them, even in Lebanon, which has been, highlighted by very credible news organisations like Declassified and Double Down News, both of whom I support, and everybody should be supporting them. I do have a beef with some news organisations, alternative news organisations, that are actually, all they do is just feed off the blooming horror. It's like, oh yeah, how Trump is their bloody cash cow. Sitting there telling us how bad it all is while living it up big on the bloody donations and stuff. Whereas people like Double Down News and declassified are doing, proper journalism. The same with the electronic intifada. I mean, unfortunately, I can only afford to donate to two because I'm just, a carer, and I do give a lot in donations to others as well, But why, we all need to face reality, okay? We need to face reality. So here's a taste of reality, okay? Have this taste of reality.
Israeli Channel 10 reported in March of 2014 that Israel has the largest human skin bank in the world. Where do you think they got all this skin from? They have more human skin than China and India. They are literally skinning the dead bodies of my brothers and sisters in Palestine. That's where they are getting the human skin from. And if I call them Nazis, your law is going to punish me.
You call them Nazis. They are Nazis, right? I mean, I grew up believing Zionist lies about, yes, there was a Holocaust. I've never denied that there was a Holocaust. Okay. That also included gypsies, Roma gypsies, Jews, socialists, and anybody of colour, and also anybody who criticised the Nazis. Okay? And they told us that that they'd made soap out of the Jews, and they were selling soap. And I was so disgusted by it as a child. I've got a very strong loathing of Nazis. My granddad died fighting them. It turns out that, no, they weren't making soap out of them. That was a lie. But this isn't a lie. This isn't a lie. The amount of human skin that they've got is incredible from a country of just 10 million people. Okay? And what are they doing with that skin? Don't tell me they're not selling the organs that they harvest. How many bodies that have been unearthed in these makeshift mass graves that Israel's been doing across Gaza? How many bodies had organs surgically removed from their bodies? How many detainees, Palestinians that die are having their skin removed? And, this isn't an idle statement, okay? It's backed up by hard evidence. Israel's skin bank paradox and organ harvesting allegations. And this is from TDT World Research Centre. TRT, sorry. Welcome to a new episode of The Tipping Point from the TRT Research Centre.
Welcome to The Tipping Point from the TRT World Research Center. Today we're turning our focus to an issue that's impossible to ignore in today's global landscape. The persistent and frankly deeply troubling allegations of organ harvesting that seem to shadow military operations and political disputes.
It's a sobering dimension to geopolitical conflict, isn't it? We so often focus on, the strategy, the borders, the politics, but this really forces us to confront the commodification of vulnerable bodies, specifically the deceased.
Exactly. And that's our mission today, really, to unpack the history and the context around these very serious claims because they don't just appear out of nowhere.
Yeah.
As we went through the material, 3 key points really stood out.
I think the first has to be the sheer longevity of these allegations. They're not new, they're long-standing, dating all the way back to the First Intifada, and they suggest a persistent network.
Right. And secondly, we're moving beyond just claims here. There are documented official admissions that confirm the systematic removal of body parts, like skin, from deceased Palestinians and African workers for medical use.
And the third point, which really ties it all together, is the driver behind it. There's this significant gap in Israel's own national organ donation rate, which fuels a debate around organ tourism and, I suppose, the potential targeting of victims and detainees.
Okay.
Organ tourism. Go to Israel and get an organ from, someone that Palestine's described as a beast and killed. And we're talking about Semitic people here. We're talking about the genuine descendants of Abraham who have the DNA to prove it. And it's provable in a court of law. It's evidence. They have the DNA. They are the progeny of ancient Jews who then, and many of them became Christian. They followed Jesus, a Jew. And then after that, many of those and Jews became Muslim, because Muslim is a kosher faith. It includes Jesus also as a prophet of God. Jesus is recognised as a prophet of God by Islam. Okay? They're kosher. That's why Jews can eat halal and vice versa. They do everything that the Jews of ancient times did. Pray, give to charity, wash regularly, get married, live according to a system of humane law. But these people are Nazi Jews who, is it Ashkenazi Jews, who are converts. They decided to become Jewish. Okay? In Europe. They're Europeans. They have not a shred, most of them, of DNA in them. Abraham's DNA in them. And yet they are claiming that they have a right to the whole of Palestine and Lebanon and half of Iraq and half of Syria and who knows where else, even half of Saudi Arabia. And even a bit of Turkey. Because they're the descendants of Abraham, apparently. They're God's chosen people. No, they aren't. They aren't God's chosen people. Right? God chose certain people among the Jews, the Hebrews, who were known as God's peculiar people. Because, they have connection to higher consciousness, maybe. Would God's chosen people really behave like this? So, from falsely accusing Nazis of, making soap out of Jews, as if what they did to Jews wasn't bad enough, right? They always have to make it worse, don't they? Because they were pushing for Israel. They wanted to horrify people who were then going to say, yeah, go on Israel, go on Zionists, go and get Israel, go and perform the Nakba, because they need to do it, because, those Arabs shouldn't be there. It's a land for Jews, you see. And the same again today with the beheaded babies and the rapes. And the baby burnt in an oven and a 12-year-old child incinerated. Well, a 12-year-old child was incinerated by Israel under the Hannibal Directive when they were shelling the kibbutzes. And then they get the Speaker of the House of Parliament across over there showing him the damage caused by Hamas. And that was a lie. It was a lie. And he still stands by the lie. They still come out with the lies. David Lammy was still talking about beheaded babies long after it had been exposed thoroughly as a lie. Showing us all the incinerated bodies in that car park. Hamas. No, it was Israeli Hellfire missiles. They incinerated their own people because apparently everybody in those cars was a Hamas hostage. And this, I mean, I am just outraged about it. I am absolutely outraged. And I think everybody should be. We need to be outraged because we cannot allow these people to be taking over our country. And again, we've got, the next general election, we've got the choice of two Zionists. Apparently, Polanski is the lesser of the two evils. We need to vote for Polanski to stop. We need to vote for a Zionist to stop a Zionist getting in. How do we know that when Polanski gets in, oh yeah, he might tax the rich 2%. He's not said that he's going to lower interest rates, so that makes taxing the rich only 1%. It's nothing. He's offered a few fucking crumbs. That's what he's offered. And said, let's make hope normal again. Hoping what? Hoping a Zionist to sort this country out? A man who believes that there are levels of Zionism. I am so angry with that man. I've actually blocked him. Right? I've blocked him off my ex. I am so disgusted and disappointed because I know that he's a liar because he supports Zionism. He thinks there's levels of Zionism. What next? Carbon footprint credits. "15-minute cities. Who knows what else under the heading Green Agenda? When we know that actually carbon is not the issue of global warming. It is not the issue. And then an official survey of 654 Thai workers in Israel found that every one of them had been raped or sexually assaulted by locals. And then, you've got to remember all the human trafficking that goes on. And, with their global survey, you see, this is the other thing, this is the danger, of why we need to be very, very, very concerned about this when Palantir has been given that contract to handle all of Britain's NHS data. Now that is against the law, okay, because it is in breach of the Data Protection Act. They've given a Zionist military intelligence asset access to all NHS data. All of it. A nation that thieves the organs of the people they persecute and murder. How do we know that data will not be used by some rich person somewhere who needs a kidney and they just look through all except AI on the NHS data? Can you find how many people in Britain have these particular genetics for an organ for this person? There's 70 million people in Britain. There's only 10 million people in Israel. This is... Oh my gosh, I just want to scream. I want to scream. How can the British people be so stupid? Like I say, forget standing up against them. Forget standing up against Palantir. Stand up for your human rights and your human rights to data protection, your human rights to women's rights, children's rights, animal rights. Now, Palantir, an Israeli military intelligence asset of Zionist nation, like I say, that has a skin bank, the largest skin bank and organ banks in the world. Everybody is at risk. And I say that this Palantir thing needs to stop now. Immediately. I mean, who did we have here talking about it? I know it was on one of these. I think it was this link. Oh, here she is. Look. She's talking about Starmer Mandelson Palantir story raises serious questions about how a power is being used. a private meeting, 240 million contract without competition. The public deserves answers and full transparency now. No, the public deserves arrest and prosecution of people who have breached the Data Protection Act to put everybody in this country at risk now. Imagine your child has all the heart, the same DNA required by some rich people in the world. Oh, suddenly it's died in an operation. Suddenly, oh, you know, your heart could save somebody's, that child's heart could save somebody's life. Or the kidneys. Or perhaps causing accidents for people. And just taking organs without the family's consent. Because who would know? Do people go and inspect their dead to see if there's any marks on them, that they've had organs removed? This is an actual medical health risk to everybody in Britain. Now we know what they are doing. Okay? Now we know what they are doing. I can't get my breath. Zach Polanski. Sorry, no, you're a Zionist. I don't trust you. I do not trust you. I have every reason in this world not to trust a Zionist. You need to convince the people, me, that you will not, that you're not a liar, that you don't support terrorism, that you don't support any of this. And if you don't, then you're not a Zionist, are you? If you don't support this, then you're not a Zionist. So either turn your back on Zionists and evict Zionists from the party as quickly as Jews and socialists were evicted by Zionist Labour, okay? And, you know, we know that they are Zionist Labour because we've got the bloody evidence. After Corbyn, UK Labour elects Keir Starmer Zionist with Jewish wife as leader. And he's apologised to Jews for anti-Semitism. People standing up against terrorists, because that's what Zionists are. As the Queen of England labelled them, and Margaret Thatcher, they are terrorists. He vows to tear out this poison. What? Jews? Socialist Jews are poison? A Holocaust survivor is poison for speaking out against absolute evil. I can't get my breath. So, you know, as I've stated on X, here, I think it's in the notifications. I get that many. I have to go through them. As I've stated here, about in relation to Palantir, that, you know, we can't accept. It's illegal. It violates UK Data Protection Act and UK national security, with all NHS data handled by an Israeli military asset directly involved in genocide, blackmail, threats and bribery. Get lost, right? If ever there was a time, for the people to stand up now for our human rights, no riots, no protests. We stand up and we celebrate our human rights. We get strong. We stand up because standing up against this lot, we're just wasting our energy. And every time they give themselves more power on the strength of it, they're arresting people for protesting. They're whittling away our human rights. They are making crime normal. Crimes against the public normal. This is normal. A paramedic discovers that one of the victims of a murderous Israeli airstrike targeting displaced families in Beersheba is his own brother. The crime continues. So does international inaction. Well, I tell you, governments and media and everybody start acting when millions and millions and millions of people are standing up for their human rights and saying no to Zionism. We are sick of the wars. It's time for peace. Peace, peace, peace. Let the peaceful people of Israel and the peaceful people of every nation surrounding Israel unite and stand up for their own rights, to be human, to live a humane life, to live in joy and happiness instead of constant threat and terror that didn't actually exist because, why was Israel funding Hamas? Where is the logic that a governing body that was placed into power by Israel, that receives billions in funds from Israel for decades, right? That it should put all of its country at risk just to go and get hostages and then barter for a few hostages from Palestine, that are being held in Israeli prisons, right? Where's the sense? Where's the military sense working there? The intelligence? Like, what, you're going to put thousands and thousands, because they know that they only send one rocket over to Israel that does nothing, okay, can't get through the shield, but nonetheless it then gives Israel the right to start bombing Gaza. And they've done it, we've seen it how many times? Operation this, Operation Cast Lead, Operation whatever, Operation Justified Vengeance, that was highlighted by John Pilger as the Dagon Plan. And that is what they did on October the 7th. All the evidence is there to support that lawful suspicion that this whole thing was planned to a T. I mean, I am not dissing the recruits that on the ground in Gaza that were caught up into Hamas. Because, they're willing recruits. They've witnessed their families being murdered, abducted, raped, whatever. Right? They've been radicalised. And Hamas was there to absorb that youth, to give them an organisation, something, to give them hope, you see. To give them some hope. And then they are used to justify Operation Justified Vengeance. That is not a military plan. And, I'm sick of people saying, oh no, I'm not going to criticise Hamas. Yes, I do criticise Hamas. Why weren't they behaving like the PLO, who had given up the violence, realised that, yes, you're just wasting your time, you're just giving them more power, and each time they get more land. Let's start addressing this with diplomacy. He was travelling around the world talking to politicians. He was gaining ground. They killed him, apparently with polonium, according to the latest evidence. And in comes Hamas. So, yes, I do criticise Hamas. I don't criticise the people on the ground, the recruits, because that was their only hope. Their own defence. But apparently, you see, Palestine isn't allowed to have a military because it's not a state. In which case, Israel has absolutely no power because they have no right to target a whole civilian population on the basis of armed gangs, which is what Hamas amounted to in international law, because they're not a national army. They were just an armed gang. And no nation is allowed to respond the way Israel has militarily against an armed gang. I will leave you this link. All of the law is there, right? All of everything that's happened. It's a massive article. It's got 100 and odd links, and it's all there. What they've done, why they're doing it, and I've got this, which I have put my life on the line to write this. I really have. Have I got any support? Has anybody even said anything about it? Oh, because I'm just a little nobody. I'm sick of it. Has Jeremy Corbyn said anything about it? Has he shared it? Would he dare share it? No, he bloody wouldn't. And that's why I don't really trust any of them. In fact, the people I trust now are the Workers' Party, who've actually got the least chances to win the next election. The Workers' Party, that's it. Your party? Is it anti-Zionist? And it doesn't need to declare itself Zionist. All it needs to declare itself is pro-human rights. Because human rights are anti-Zionist. Human rights are anti-fascist. They're anti-Nazi. They're anti-Nigel Farage. But we don't have to be anti. The anti is on the side of the enemy, right? They're against us. The anti-human rights people, right? That's what Zionists are. We stand up for our human rights. That's the only way to make them strong, is by standing up for them, not standing against. So forget all your protests, right? You protest for Palestinians' human rights. That isn't a protest, is it? It's not a protest. When we collectively get together to stand up for our rights. You know, if human rights were being implemented in Britain by the people, if the people took the time and trouble to stand up for the rights to get the homeless in shelter, because that's a human right to shelter. Why aren't British people receiving their right to shelter? But no, instead let Nigel Farage, a Nazi, come in and start and threaten to move, well, actually promise. You know, apparently David Cameron pledged these rights because he wrote them, him and Patrick Rock, his senior advisor, who later got prosecuted as a pedophile, right? A pedophile, and David Cameron, a pedophile protector. They wrote the Bill of Rights that's now been handed to Farage. That's why all the Tories are joining. Oh, they can't wait to remove your human rights. The people of Britain will not know what's hit them when they have no human rights. Because, mark my words, it will be. Have you got money? You've got rights. Okay? So, look, what can I say? I'm going to leave it there. I'm absolutely outraged. And like I say, this Palantir project thing, it's null and void. It's illegal. It goes against the Data Protection Act and handing over our medical evidence to people who target people, kill people, and remove their skin and their organs. Okay? And that's all you need to know about it, people. Take this government to court. We want a class action and we want Zionists out of office. That's it. Okay? And Zach Polanski, turn your back on Zionism. Right? Turn your back. Everybody who's a part of it.